days on a desk, this warrant was. And why, right? And was it because Bill Blair never bothered to look? Was it because his staff were withholding it from him? Was it because it was uncomfortable who might be calling the target of the person they wanted to investigate, wiretap, et cetera, et cetera? Right. Lots of questions around this whole thing. So we'll examine China and warrants that sit around, et cetera, and like serious questions about why was this happening, right? And how are we going to hold people accountable? Because again, doesn't seem like we're going to. Backbenchers want to oust Trudeau. So that's interesting. That's where we're going to start actually today. The potential cabinet or backbencher revolt. And I don't know if it's actually going to come to fruition, but this is what Jody Wilson-Raybould should have done when she was trying to stop Trudeau because she realized he was a liar. She thought truth was enough. Nope, turns out not in the Canadian system. DEI doctors, so international communities, England this time is noticing that Canada's got a new medical school and it's for DEI doctors, and oof, not so good, right? Number one, we've got number one from Star Trek in a cameo today. He's talking about weather modification, and we've got Lazers modifying the weather from CBS 2009. And so it's pretty wild stuff. Lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to talk about this. Chrystia Freeland is asked about $3 billion fine levied against TD this morning. Somehow the same government able to identify grannies that gave $20 to the Freedom Convoy couldn't identify billions in criminal money laundering at TD Bank. So interesting what they're paying attention to, right? They're pointing at citizens saying these criminals need to be looked after. Meanwhile, banks are running money laundering for real hardened criminals, and our government is asleep at the wheel, it seems. It's only a minute, quick back and forth.
TD Bank has been ordered to pay over $3 billion. That's $3 billion by U.S. regulators because they've been found to be in conspiracy to commit money laundering for criminals who traffic in drugs that end up on our streets. Mr. Speaker, simple question for the government. When will they take money laundering seriously?
Mr. Speaker, I do want to thank the member opposite for the serious and important question, and I want to wish him and his beautiful family a wonderful Thanksgiving. We do take money laundering very seriously. That is why we've acted to give the Superintendent of Financial Institutions more powers to oversee Canada's financial institutions. And I would urge all members interested in this important issue to look to the statement that he has made on this. We have also been investing in FinTrack and increasing its resources and authorities.
But FinTrack is not very effective. Canu says, what is the purpose of FinTrack then? Like, what use is it then? And Zoltan says, excellent question. And I tend to agree with that. Melissa says, did you guys hear Justin Trudeau just lended Zelensky another $400 million, this loan, but isn't Ukraine broke? Haven't they declared bankruptcy? And so this is, I don't know which outlet this is, but it was reported on the 11th. Today's the 12th. Canada to provide Ukraine with $300 million of additional preferential loan. And so I don't expect any of this money to come back. It seems like we're wasting money. I was watching a television show yesterday. It was all about U.S. car chases, modern U.S. car chases, actually. And there was one I saw with an 18-wheeler, but I digress. Watching this chase through an 18-wheeler is very hard to bring to a stop. If you want to stop that thing, you're not stopping that thing. Like, hard no, it's not happening. Anyway, well, it seemed like these police officers were having a hard time with it. But there was another chase we were watching, and it was going through a residential neighborhood in like a small Oklahoma town. Like it wasn't huge, but it had a Walmart. It looked like driving around here-ish, right? But not exactly, but similar. But the roads were terrible, and like it was really run down. Like it looked like it was crumbling. And I thought, jeepers creepers, like that's what washing the money out of the tax base looks like. It looks like hundreds of millions of dollars to Ukraine and crumbling infrastructure at home, right? And I complain about the potholes in Guelph. And I mean, we have beautiful parks, and Ontario is a very rich province, so there's a lot of tax money to be thrown around, plus all the development money that gets thrown at cities, right? So they've got lots and lots of money. And it seems like it's still not well spent, but it has even the worst Ontario cities that you can imagine. And maybe I'm wrong. I haven't been to Welland in a while. How's Welland doing? The worst Ontario cities you can imagine are better than what I saw in this video of like every road had just massive, massive potholes everywhere. It was crazy. These cops were like, I mean, they were doing 75 miles an hour on straight runs and they were bumping all over the place. Anyway, it's incredible to watch all this money being washed out of the tax base. Back to this. Money is important, and when you print money, it has an impact. And we've been talking about inflation, and maybe inflation is this and maybe inflation is that. And it seems like the whole reason is they injected $500 trillion worth of money. And this guy's got a demonstration, and he's got a glass of iced tea, and the glass is half empty. The glass is, it's like a third. It's only got a third of water in it, maybe a little bit more than a third of water in it, of iced tea in it. And he takes a pitcher of water and he dumps the water into the iced tea. And he says, this shows you what happens when you print that amount of money. This is a very clear scientific demonstration of what is happening in our economy. And I think he explains it well. So here, that was for the people who were just listening. Here we go.
This is what happens when you have a quantity of something and then you add more to it. This is dilution.
Yeah.
The principle is so simple that a child can understand. And you can create this little science project at home. Sorry, you can have your tea back. Okay. But the principle is called dilution. And when you print $5 trillion and you put it into the economy, you have diluted the value of the money. So for instance, if you had a minimum wage at some amount and somebody was making minimum wage and they were still making minimum wage after this money was printed, they actually are making considerably less in terms of real dollars. It's dilution. So the $5 trillion that we printed, I would argue, is the primary source of inflation. You know, we can say, well, eggs went up because feed went up, fuel went up because there's a war in Ukraine. You can find a lot of excuses for various different industries. But what is the probability that every price went up all at the same time? You can't blame them on specific supply chain problems. The thing
how do you explain the global?
Yes, I'm glad you asked me that, Professor Raskin. Because they did the same thing in Europe. They did this everywhere. They printed their own equivalents of the Federal Reserve and treasuries, created their own money out of thin air. Mm-hmm. It may be the only thing that saved our dollar is that everybody else did the same thing to their currency. And so the question is, right now we're coming up on the debt limit. Why isn't anybody proposing to print more money? Why aren't the economists proposing to print more money? Because it is poison. When you print money, it is poison to our economy, and it is
poison, right? So that's why they're not saying you should print more money, but we did that already. And in Canada, we did that too. And he was very clear, that's the cause of inflation. And the only reason that it happened everywhere is because they did it everywhere, including Canada, right? And so that's what we're dealing with. True North is reporting the latest report from the PBO reaffirms Canadian households are paying out more than they receive back in rebates despite repeated claims from the Liberals to the contrary. Yes. And if you tax energy, you hate your citizens. If you tax the inputs, you hate your citizens. You don't want them to produce anything. You don't want to export. You hate them. And these people hate us. And so I think it's a good operation to live as if we are under occupation at this point in time. Unfortunately, they're trying to increase the price of everything in order to make us poor, change our behavior, in order to save the planet, right? But what? They're just trying to lower our quality of living, our standard of living. Pierre Poilievre is weighing in. This is our election series of tabs. And he says, after 9 years of NDP Liberals, Thanksgiving food costs are through the roof. It's a 30-second spot. This is very election-y, but I mean, like, it's spot on. If you were running a blog, right? If you were running anything that was trying to be topical and stay ahead and use seasonal things to promote your stuff, then like this is the kind of stuff you produce and this is the kind of stuff you do, right? So like here is, after 9 years of Justin Trudeau, how much your Thanksgiving dinner has increased from the CPC. So well done, credit where it's due. Turkey, 74%. Olive oil 82%, carrots 67%, sugar 15%, onions 210%, potatoes 64%. That's increase in price. Pretty incredible. It's a little Terminator-y, like wow, like the soundtrack. There's no words. I was supplying the audio there for the script, but the rest is it's all emotion. It's all right. It's interesting. Not worth the cost, they say. Lori Goldstein says the CBC is reporting what could be the start of a liberal regicide. That means the taking out of their king. Some liberal MPs are mounting a new effort to oust Justin Trudeau. MPs were pulled into meetings across Parliament Hill this week to sign a pledge demanding change at the top. So, I mean, this is like, what, 2-3 years too late? Elaine says a group of backbench MPs, primarily from Atlantic Canada and southwestern Ontario, are in discussions to formally release an ask for the Prime Minister to consider the future of the Liberal Party in making a decision about whether to stay at the helm of it. And so here's the CBC article. Pressure is building on the Prime Minister and his office as a growing number of anxious Liberal MPs are coordinating efforts to force Justin Trudeau to step down as Liberal Party leader, multiple sources have told CBC News. Disgruntled Liberal MPs held a series of meetings to discuss a path forward for the party since the surprising Toronto-St. Paul's by-election loss in June. Those talks accelerated with Parliament's return and the Montreal by-election loss. They escalated further this week with the Prime Minister and his Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, out of the country for a summit in Asia. Some MPs are being asked to sign their names to what amounts to a pledge to stand together in calling for Trudeau to resign, multiple sources said. This is what Jody Wilson-Raybould should have done. I said that in my intro, but like, if she was serious about getting Trudeau to step down, relying on the truth of him admitting that he's a lying liar, and it wasn't a good plan, right? Like, you need to have 51% of the caucus behind you, and then you say, you get out or we're going to get you out. We're going to force you out today. I've got the paperwork ready. You go or you're going, right? Like, that's how you do it. And so they're trying to keep it under wraps, they say. The document isn't a letter to be circulated. Sources describe it as a vehicle to secure commitment from MPs to seek a leadership change and to bind the MPs to that goal if the Prime Minister and his supporters push back, because they will. MPs were pulled into meetings. Multiple sources told CBC News that MPs have been signing a single document that is being tightly controlled. No copies or photos of it are being circulated. All the sources spoke to CBC News on condition that they not be named due to the sensitivity of the internal discussions. These sources said at least 20 MPs have signed the document so far, with others voicing their support for the cause. One MP who signed the document told CBC News the number of MP signatures has spilled onto a second page. That same MP said other caucus members have called since word of the document's existence started to spread, indicating they wanted to sign it. One Liberal who is part of the effort said the intention was to keep this initiative quiet, until they had strength in numbers. The fear is that moving too early would allow the Prime Minister's office, PMO, to push back and splinter the calls for change, as they did in the summer in the wake of that bruising Toronto by-election defeat. That's why MPs are being asked to sign the document now. It's an insurance policy of sorts, signed in ink by the MPs themselves, so it can't be disavowed if the pressure gets too high. So, interesting. Do you think that they'll succeed? Almost every comment under the tweets that I've seen talking about this article say basically, I hope that Trudeau goes, and anybody else responding is, Trudeau's not going anywhere. He's a narcissist who believes the country needs him. And I think I believe that. I think that he doesn't really want to go anywhere. I think that he's got nothing else to do. He doesn't have any appointments. There's no UN job open for him, right? Not yet. So he's not. He doesn't have the expertise to become like the Bank of England chair or anything like that, right? So not like Mark Carney. But still, right? It's a whole thing. So I don't think he's going anywhere, and he'll take the liberal ship down with him. Although I don't think jettisoning Trudeau is going to really change the trajectory of the Liberals. In fact, he might be an asset, really, because people who like him a lot, right? And people who hate him. So at this point in time, keeping him on board, I think they're going to lose one way or the other. And I mean, why change the ship? It's crashing into the rocks at this point in time. You're going to have to do a big overhaul. Like, whatever, let it go. NDP say it's a good day for Canadians under the NDP Pharmacare plan. 9 million Canadians will get access to free birth control. 3.7 million Canadians will receive diabetes medications. Pierre Poilievre and his Conservatives tried to block it. We didn't let him. And I don't know if diabetes medications means needles and insulin and like testing strips, or if it means Ozempic, or what it means. I hope it doesn't mean Ozempic only. But this whole thing, again, I'm very skeptical of. It's pushing in the framework to have universal healthcare, universal pharmacare, and I think that's a net negative because I think people who have better plans than what the government can offer will get screwed out of their better plans. That's fundamentally what I think is going to happen. No Apology is responding to the NDP saying, whose plan is this? The Liberals are taking credit. Did you know? So No Apology says, I'm confused because the Liberals say it's their pharmacare plan. Whose is it? And I don't want to play Justin Trudeau because that's just like nails on a chalkboard, right? But the Liberal Party says, let's get the Liberal pharmacare plan done, or let's get Liberal pharmacare done, and claps. Ridiculous. So they're taking credit. The NDP's taking credit. I think it's a net negative, but they want the electoral points. They want the bump, and they're shopping the dental plan as something that's a positive as well. Justin Trudeau was campaigning on it in a room full of seniors saying, you've got dental care and we gave it to you. So the whole thing is the whole thing seems very strange. It seems strange, and it's not, I don't think it's actually filling the hole, right? Like, I mean, sure, like you get $650 to get your teeth done, but what if it costs $1,000? Like now you're $450 in the hole, or you're $400 or whatever in the hole, $350 in the hole. And like you can't get the dental work done, or they only do up to what you can afford. It's almost like a lead magnet. Like we'll change your sink pipe for free, or we'll change your sink pipe for free up to $600. If it goes over $600, you'll be on the hook for that. And if we find anything else that is not covered, you're on the hook for that. Because like sometimes those are the best lead magnets. Sometimes it's like, I'll fix that, but fixing the rest of this is going to take some real work. And then you get hired to do that real work that fixing the rest of this is going to take. And so like, if that's how it works, the government's handing these private dentists a huge lead magnet that they can then exploit isn't the right word, but is that really the intention? To make these people at the mercy of these dentists? And is it? Do you think that this do you think that universal drug care or the dental plan is a benefit, or is it a negative, right? And should we be talking about medical assistance in dying during this election, or not so much? It seems like it's quiet, right? But all of this health related stuff seems personal, but all of a sudden there's way more to talk about. And I mean, like, where do you even start? It seems overwhelming. Let's talk about, is this China? A little bit. This is China, but I've got a whole China section. Hold on a second. This is here because it's about elections, and the China section is more about the Bill Blair warrants and things like that. So I'll keep this here for now, but this is about elections, and this is why this is here. Bruce is saying the People's Republic of China, or the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is trying to help David Eby in the October 19th election. Why did the RCMP tell the CCP PRC on October 3rd that the RCMP was not capable of stopping PRC money laundering or foreign interference? Yeah, interesting timing, right? Like, weird. Andy Lee says Rise Media, founded in 2015 by China-based Lahu, implicated in foreign interference for running ads for Parm Bains, managed by former Global Times run staff, runs interference for BC NDP by running conservative attack ads. Rise columnist Ding Gao is a close friend of Dave Eby and Senator Wu. So, man, right? Like, talking about overwhelming, the China stuff is overwhelming. Like, I don't know how Andy Lee keeps track of all of it. It seemed like you'd have to have, those boards where like Castle uses them. Mystery writers use them to plot things out, and like police use them to plot out criminal gangs and things like that. You'd need boards with like people's heads on them, and like these people are connected to these people and connected to these people, and these are the newspaper articles about it, and so on and so forth. And like, honestly, you would need that level of organization to be as on top of it as Andy Lee seems to be. And she is. She puts out stuff for years. Like, it's not seems to be, she is, right? And so she's very well organized, and that's not easy to do, right? I'm not organized like that. I'm just falling down a hill here looking at things. But we have some wonderful people who are putting things together, and then government that has absolutely no will to act. I wonder why, right? Like, I wonder why they have no will to act, because they're in control, and what they're doing is actually maintaining their control structure, right? And so it's terrible, because that's a loss for the Canadian people, really. Ryan says, how many times will the Liberals keep ignoring the fact that it's us Canadians who want an election? Karina, who talks to us like we're five years old, is insufferable. This video is only 23 seconds, but it feels so long. Like, there have been videos that have been 2 minutes that I'm like, I can't believe we listened to a 2-minute video. Like, because usually 2 minutes, sometimes there's a lag point in the middle and whatever, but sometimes they just go super quick. The whole thing feels like lag. Okay, here we go.
I think the question is, why are the Conservatives so desperate for an election right now? Because they want to make sure they get out before Canadians understand that they have a hidden agenda. But, Mr. Speaker, Canadians are much smarter than that. When the Conservatives say one thing and do another, Canadians know. We trust Canadians. When will Conservatives start trusting them?
Remember, it's interesting because I think a lot of Canadians want an election. I don't think it's going to help anything, but a lot of Canadians want an election, and the Liberals keep saying, oh, well, we know Canadians don't want an election. They don't want to go to the polls. They want a government that is ready to govern, and so on and so forth. But I don't trust these people to govern whatsoever. Like, what they've done is a terrible job so far, and there's no indication that that's going to get better at all. Like, at all. So that's unfortunate for everybody. White North is saying, nothing is free in Canada. You know it and I know it. Christia Freeland says, we're one step closer to ensuring all Canadians have access to free contraceptives and free diabetes medication. No one should have to choose between their health and paying their bills. So, okay, it's got insulin and no maybe the test strips or the white jar there, maybe. We're making diabetes meds like insulin free, they say. So there you go. That's at least they're including insulin, and it's not driving everybody to Ozempic. I was worried about that. So something I'm on board with. If the government is paying for heroin addicts and drug addicts to have free needles, I'm on board with paying for diabetic needles. Although at the same time, like, we shouldn't be paying for the drug needles, period. That is not an endorsement of the drug needles. They're continuing to do the drug needle thing as well, even though those policies seem to be adding to the death toll. Even though those policies seem to be negative, we're still doing that and doubling down on that, and municipalities are doubling down on that kind of stuff, and that's weird to see because it's a bad outcome. It's not good, and we're not responding to that negative outcome. Like, usually if you put your hand on a stove and it burns you, you pull your hand away and you don't do that again because you've learned your lesson. You're like, that was a bad idea, I shouldn't do that, right? But we're putting our hand on the stove and we're just standing there watching it burn, and it's like, do you not understand that that's a negative outcome? It's bad. We don't want more deaths. We don't want people dying of overdoses. We don't want these problems in our community, the crime and the rest. They don't seem to care. So that's weird. So Ryan Garrettson says, Trudeau can't answer a question. He gets asked, how will he get Parliament back on track since refusing to hand over the Sustainable Development Technology Canada documents? How does he start? Our focus is on Canadians. This guy can enrage every nerve in my body. It's 1 minute and 40. Okay, so we're going to listen to about a minute of it, maybe 40 seconds. Depends on how long this feels. I've turned down the volume. 1 minute Trudeau warning at least. Here we go.
You mentioned in the beginning that Pharmacare passed. Right now, Parliament is in a bit of a standstill. How do you plan on getting things back on track in the House of Commons?
Our focus is on Canadians. The fact that Pharmacare has made it out of Parliament means that now we get to do the work of bringing on board provinces and actually delivering free insulin for Canadians who are struggling making ends meet right now. We know that, for example, people who skip their insulin because they have to pay rent or they need to put food on their table, face the risk of much more serious health outcomes that can include blindness and amputations. At the same time,
he was asked, how are you going to get Parliament back on track? And he's shopping his Pharmacare bill, right? So like big pivot. And I can't stand the guy. Okay, moving on. Globe and Mail, this is our grab bag of governance. Globe and Mail says, Justin Trudeau repeats call for Lebanon ceasefire after third Canadian killed in conflict. I wish our government would focus on Canada. And I've diatribed enough about that in recent days, so I won't again today. But it's one of those things where they focus on foreign countries that they can't do anything about because we have no military and we have no say and we don't have any clout or influence really in the region at all. So, I mean, we should just mind our own damn business and work on our own country and make it as good as we can possibly make it. Period. Right? Like, I'm sad for Lebanon. I'm sad for the Middle East. It's not my country. We should stop funding the war. Period. We should stop sending money. We should stop sending weapons. We should stop sending ammunition. We should stop funding the war. We should say, there's a table here. If you want to have a meeting, we could do that. That's about all we can do. Right? So, like, I don't have any kind of support for any of this. I think it's bad governance. I think it's tone deaf. I think it's playing politics to the lowest common denominator, people who are interested to virtue signal and say, I support being a good person, rah, rah, rah. And so they'll say, they support one of these wars or whatever it is, one of these sides, Ukraine, Israel, whoever it is, Palestine, whoever it is they think is the good guy. But it's a zero-sum game. It means absolutely nothing. We have no clout, no say in the region. And I'm diatribing on it again. Okay, moving on. National Post says, the Post front page for Saturday, October 12th, 2024. And it says, the urgent need for a COVID inquiry. It's Thanksgiving weekend, right? Like, I don't know how many people are going to be paying attention to the newspapers this weekend. Maybe some people, maybe they'll talk about it at the Thanksgiving table and stuff. So it's good that they're publishing this kind of stuff. But oftentimes, holiday weekends are where news stories go to die, right? Like, you understand, they're publishing this, but they don't actually want anybody to do anything about this, right? And on Monday, they'll publish something denigrating about Thanksgiving or the tradition, or how really it should be about First Nations people or something else, something that is meant to undermine it, I think. But until then, they're going to just try and bury news articles that they are going to publish, but they don't want anything really done about it. I'd love to have a COVID inquiry that's not run by the government, that is actually there to find criminality, to hold people accountable for things they said and did during that period of time in a real, tangible way, to get some kind of closure, to make sure this never happens again. But what they'll do, if there's any kind of inquiry, what they'll do is it'll be a whitewash. They'll say, these people did their best. These people did everything they could possibly be expected to do given the circumstances and the knowledge at the time. These people spent money in a way that you would do that now if you were in the same circumstance type deal. That's kind of going to be the argument. And I feel like that's not good enough. It's not good enough because there was inside information that these people knew and wasn't shared. And that blows out of the water. They did their best argument, right? And they shut down the economy. They inflated the economy through money printing. They did so many things and caused so much damage. It is hard for me to believe they did their best and the damage caused was just a mistake. So a COVID inquiry that actually is going after the criminals, that'd be great. But I think that what we're going to get is something like the 9/11 Commission or the Hoke report or the Johnson report or the you name it report, right? Like anything done by the Justin Trudeau government. All of it has been fraudulent and done to cover up crimes rather than get to the bottom of things, right? And so I don't trust these people, period. Why would I? They've not been shown to be trustworthy. True North says the ongoing investigation into the Jasper wildfire is set to intensify, with the Conservatives proposing a motion to extend the study by 4 additional meetings. Maybe they'll prorogue after Thanksgiving? I don't know. Everybody comes back to Parliament for it to be prorogued. Maybe that would get rid of all of this pesky investigation into this stuff, because it seems like, again, with the Jasper wildfire, it seems Parks Canada acted inappropriately. It seems like Guilbeault's office and the broader kind of ministry acted inappropriately. Nobody acted when people were saying there's a real big problem here. And the reason they didn't react is because of political considerations. We're not sure how backburns like this will play with our political base. And so we can't do these things. So we're just going to either give non-answers or we're going to say we're investigating it more or whatever. And that's not great. You know, like that's not really good at all, because what happens is nothing gets done and then Jasper burns down, right? And then when Jasper's burning down, the Parks Canada says, you can't even help. You firefighters, you're not allowed to help us. So that's crazy. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadapoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful